going to be criminally referring you to the Department of Justice for investigation.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjakovic. And we are Unapologetically Outspoken.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. So let's just dive in on what's going on over the past couple of days since we last talked. So Tara, Missouri's Attorney General Andrew Bailey wants the Department of Justice to investigate whether or not Biden's cognitive decline was exploited while he was in office. I mean, obviously it was. We all know this, but he posted on X, quote, "I'm demanding the DOJ investigate whether President Biden's cognitive decline allowed unelected staff to push through radical policy without his knowing approval. If true, these executive orders, pardons, and all other actions are unconstitutional and legally void," end quote. So he sent a letter, kind of detailing everything. But if this goes through, from what I understand, this would make Hunter Biden, Fauci, Liz Cheney, all the other pardons null and void. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. But I was looking into it, and I think we might have touched on this before, but Biden granted 4,425 grants of clemency, which is a record. No president has ever done that before. The next highest was FDR with 3,796. But the kicker is that 96% of the acts of clemency by Biden were after October 1st. So what Bailey is saying is that by then, even the Democrats admitted that Biden wasn't mentally capable of running again. Yet he was allowed to push through all these last minute pardons along with all those last minute orders to try and screw the Trump administration. And so in his letter to the Inspector General, Bailey said this, quote, "This strongly suggests exploitation by staffers and officials who wanted to promulgate far-left policies without any accountability or democratic legitimacy." So once again, I feel like the left completely screwed themselves because in their whole coup against Biden, the whole reasoning for that was that he was too mentally incompetent to run again. But now that calls into question all the crazy far left actions that Biden took. And so at this point, it's not like the Democrats can deny it because they went on this whole media tour explaining Biden's mental decline. So it's just interesting. It's like another thing that I think is going to bite them in the ass. But what do you think? You think since it's the Trump administration, the DOJ might actually overturn the pardons?
I think this would be opening like a whole can of worms because how do you overturn the pardons, but then you don't overturn all the executive actions that he took and all the shit that he signed into law? If he was mentally incompetent for one, he has to be mentally incompetent for all of it. So I feel like they're probably not going to touch it because this like goes down a whole other rabbit hole of admitting that basically everything he did in the last few months of his administration, he wasn't mentally competent to do it, which we already knew. But because they consistently maintained that he was, like, you would have to discount everything he's done.
Right, but like maybe that's the point. Like maybe all this stuff with Doge and USAID is all pointing to the fact that they were just completely taking advantage of this guy in mental decline. So maybe it would maybe it would give the Doge team and the Trump administration more power to overturn all that stuff that they're trying to do now, and they're getting all this pushback. I don't know.
I think it would be amazing if they did, because I personally don't believe that anything Biden did was done with a clear mind. And I don't think Biden did any of it anyway. I think he was the puppet for all of these decisions. But this would really set the precedent of, digging into all the other things. So who knows?
Yeah. I think I'm too hopeful. I probably won't go anywhere.
I don't know, but speaking of Biden, let's talk about Hunter Biden because he's apparently broke. And this is despite, quote unquote, allegedly, with my air quotes, embezzling millions of dollars from overseas for years. He is now so broke that he went to court this week and told a judge that his finances are so bad that he can't continue with several lawsuits that he has, including one against Garrett Ziegler, the former Trump aide that he sued for disseminating information from his infamous laptop. And according to court filing records submitted by his attorneys, he wrote, quote, "Since late 2023 and through today, my income has decreased significantly. Prior to that, my income primarily came from sales of my artwork and sales of my memoir entitled Beautiful Things." I can't. Given the positive feedback and review of my artwork and memoir, I was expecting to obtain paid speaking engagements and paid appearances, but that has not happened. And then he also talked about how his home became unlivable after the LA fires, and they made it sound like his home burned down, right? Which it did not. And he said, quote, "While I was aware that my financial position had significantly deteriorated over time, it was not until the past month that I realized I had to take drastic action to alleviate this situation." So according to his lawyers, he's like millions of dollars in debt. And he now has to focus his time and resources on dealing with his relocation, the damage he has incurred due to the fires, and paying for his family's living expenses so he cannot spend money on litigation. And Stephanie, I don't know about you, but I literally cannot bring myself to feel even remotely sorry for this guy.
No, I think it's hilarious that he says since 2023, my income has declined. It's like, yeah, since my dad isn't in the White House anymore, I can't swindle money anymore.
Yeah,
Didn't he
exactly.
just do this a few years ago? Because remember when that woman said that she had his child and she took him to court for child support, and he was saying, "Oh, I'm too poor. I can't pay child support." Meanwhile, he was flying around in Air Force One and has all these, homes and everything. It's such a joke of someone completely using the system. And yeah, I don't feel sorry for him at all.
Yeah. No, and that's what happens when you spend billions of dollars on drugs and
Yeah,
strippers.
exactly. So yeah, screw you, Hunter Biden. And I hope that that pardon is overturned because that guy should
Yeah.
definitely be in jail. But speaking of jail or prison, I should say, we haven't talked about this yet, I don't think, but there is a strike in New York where 15,000 prison guards walked out due to unsafe conditions inside the prisons. And they say that this is caused by the Humane Alternatives to Long-Term Solitary Confinement Act, or HALT for short. So this passed by the Democrat-controlled Senate back in 2022 and basically limits the use of segregated confinement. And so the guards are saying that ever since this was put into place, there's just been a surge in inmate assaults on guards. They showed a bunch of video footage that was really disturbing of like horrible things happening in the prisons. So I guess it's just been building and building and building, and they finally decided they're going to walk out because no one was doing anything to help them. So, in addition to feeling unsafe, they said that they were also forced to work 24-hour shifts at a time. And now they're on the 18th day of this strike. And so the guards are out in the street protesting Governor Kathy Hochul because she basically isn't giving any concessions. But instead, she took away their health insurance, which she says they're never going to get back. And now she has started arresting prison guards that are refusing to go back to work. And I just think it's interesting because I thought that the Democrats were all about helping unions. But the Democrat Party's done a 180 on everything else. So I don't know why I'm surprised by this. But she's not willing to work with them like at all. So, ever since this strike started, 7 people have died so far in prisons in New York State. And I just want to point out, too, that this is New York we're talking about, the place where they refuse to prosecute criminals or illegal migrants. However, they will prosecute Donald Trump and now prison guards that work for them. So it's just crazy. But Hochul has deployed 3,000 National Guard troops to work in the prisons indefinitely. And I want to play a clip of Kathy Hochul during a press conference where she, just kind of gives her viewpoint on the whole issue. Oh, come on.
Law. They're in violation of law. We have laws on our books that are supposed to protect us from this situation. Therefore, they are violating New York state law at this moment. I have been very sympathetic to their concerns. Very. I said that even before the strike. These are tough, tough, tough jobs. A lot of people don't want to do them. We're having recruiting problems. Everybody is. Local police, NYPD, state police. We're having recruiting problems. I don't like them having to work longer shifts, the 24-hour shifts. That's a lot on their families, and I get that. But there is no justification to break the law in the state of New York. And they need to get back to work because they have created a dangerous situation for the other correction officers who lived up to their duty and their oath and the law and are in those environments, the members of other unions who are there to feed and care for people and take care of their health care. The inmate population is at risk, as well as, God bless the National Guard's men and women who are inside there dealing with absolutely unexpected circumstances, who are staying and showing up every day. I know these are hard jobs. I'm trying to recruit more people. I really am. And we're going to keep upping those numbers. I'm trying to find all the alternatives I can. But when 15,000 people walk off their jobs and turn the key and leave people alone in a prison, that has to be called out.
You cannot make up the level of hypocrisy that's going on here.
Right? Yeah, for everyone that's listening, instead of watching the video, Tara started dying laughing when she said there's no justification to break the law in New York. I mean, after the last 4 years, she really said that.
Yeah. It blows my mind. And I'm so surprised. I had no idea that this strike was even happening. As much as we talk about New York and California all the time, I didn't even know this was happening. And they've been striking since February 17th. Yeah. So this is pretty wild.
I know. And she's sitting there saying, "Oh, I'm trying to recruit people." But then she is arresting these union workers. And it's like, if you were looking for a job, would you take a job as a prison guard when you know the governor is like arresting other prison guards because they're too afraid to go to work and she's not fixing it? Like, no, she's not doing anything to make this any more appealing to recruit more people.
No, well, apparently she's trying because, hold on, stupid phone. I guess the union reached a deal last week, but a lot of the officers involved in this strike, they're not happy with what the union agreed to. So they're like, fuck it, we're not coming back to work. And then the union didn't authorize the strike. So it's very clear there's a lot of problems with the union to begin with. But I guess she is now offering a package to these strikers, and it includes a 90-day suspension of some of the aspects of this solitary confinement law, 2.5 times overpay for 30 days if they return to work for the 30 days after they return, adjourning legal procedures against the participants that are involved in this, quote, illegal strike, re-implementing their health insurance for the ones that have been terminated, and then no discipline for these striking workers. And I guess it's a last chance deal. Like, this was issued yesterday and they have until today to come back to work or they'll be fired and likely arrested. But it sounds like it's been a total shit show at the prison system because from what I read, the National Guard, they're not properly trained or equipped to take on this role. And you mentioned 7 inmates have died since the strike began. And from what I read, it's like because there's no trained guards to oversee their medical care or their day-to-day needs. And it's just crazy to me that this shit has been going on for almost a month.
I was listening to one of the senators in New York, a Republican senator, and he was saying that he's been talking to these National Guard members that are in the prisons. There are people that were deployed to war zones that said this is worse and they need to get out of here. Because it's just, like you said, it's a shit show, and they're not trained on the ins and outs of the prison system as well. They were just kind of thrown in there. They're not given any date of like, this is how long you're going to be here. And it's just terrible. And like one of the prison guards had their finger bitten off by an inmate. A woman who was visiting the prison had her face slashed open with a knife. I mean, just horrible, horrible things that have been happening regularly.
Doesn't it sound like something that you read about going on in the prisons of like Venezuela?
Yes. I was thinking we need the guy from, isn't it Ecuador, the president that made that like crazy ass prison that everyone in the world's afraid to go to? We need him to come here and reform the prisons. Oh.
Yeah. Well, speaking of reform and these liberal fucking governors and mayors, the House Oversight Committee had a hearing on Wednesday, and this was phenomenal. I must have watched, I didn't get to see the live hearing, but I watched so many clips, and they were grilling these sanctuary city mayors, including Denver Mayor Mike Johnson, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. And the clips from this hearing are just fire. And to me, the most fire one was Nancy Mace.
I love her.
And we've been talking about her for a long time. And this was no exception to just how badass she is. And this is a long clip, but I have to play the whole thing because this is probably the 6th time I'll be listening to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All of the mayors here today are actively working to harm the American people you represent. You all have blood on your hands. I'm going to ask a series of yes or no questions today, and I would like to remind all of you, you are under oath. I only want a yes or a no to my questions. My first question, do you acknowledge breaking into our country is a crime? Mayor Adams, yes or no? Do you acknowledge breaking into our country is a crime?
I acknowledge.
Yes or no?
I acknowledge.
Okay, Honorable Johnson, he's not going to answer the question. Yes or no? Is breaking into our country against the law? Yes or no?
Depends how you cross the border.
Okay,
Some folks
Mayor
have
Johnson,
status.
yes or no?
Comprehensive immigration
that's not an
reform
answer.
policies
Mayor
are what's
Wu?
necessary in
Mayor
this
Wu,
moment.
do you have a better answer than these gentlemen before you? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, do you believe it's acceptable for illegals who commit heinous crimes be released back into the public instead of being detained and deported? Mayor Adams, yes or no?
Anyone break a crime.
Yes or no? This is not hard. Yes or no?
Anyone that break a crime should be detained.
Okay, Mayor, yes or no?
They should be deported.
Okay, Mayor.
Any individual that
Yes or no?
causes harm
Yes or
and
no?
breaks
Okay,
the
Mayor
law
Wu?
should be held accountable.
This is why you have 6% approval rating, because you suck at answering questions. Mayor Wu? Yes or no?
Anyone who's a public safety threat should be prosecuted.
All right, I have my next question. When an illegal alien rapes a woman, do you believe you're on the right side of history? Mayor Adams, yes or no?
Say that question again.
Okay, Mayor Johnston. When an illegal alien rapes a woman, do you believe you're on the right side of history? Yes or no?
I will charge and prosecute them.
Yes or no? Okay, well, okay. You said you would go to jail, didn't you?
I will
For
charge and
harboring illegal
prosecute them.
aliens or something, Mayor Johnson?
Could you repeat your question, please?
When an illegal alien rapes a woman, do you believe you're on the right side of history?
Could you clarify that question?
Okay, Mayor Wu, yes or no?
No, rape is obviously
Then
horrible.
why are you letting rapists back out onto the streets of Boston?
That is not true. That is
Okay.
not what's happening in
When
Boston.
an illegal alien molests a kid, molests an underage kid, do you pat yourself on the back for being compassionate? Mayor Adams?
It's despicable and he should be arrested.
Mayor Johnson?
I prosecute folks that commit crimes like that.
You guys let them out on the streets. Mayor Johnson?
We arrest violent criminals in the city of Chicago.
Mayor Wu?
We investigate, arrest, and prosecute.
You guys don't sound very confident today. Would your city honor an ICE detainer on an illegal alien who rapes kids if one was issued today? Mayor Adams? Yes or no?
In conformance with law, we will honor detainers.
Mayor Johnson?
If there's a criminal warrant, we'll help them pick them up. If there's no criminal warrant, we'll honor a notification request.
Mayor Johnson?
Criminal warrants, we always cooperate with federal agents with a criminal warrant.
Mayor Wu?
Get a criminal warrant, we will enforce.
A criminal warrant. I'm talking about an ICE detainer on an individual who's here illegal who rapes kids. Do you all hate Donald Trump more than you love your country? Mayor Adams?
I respect my president. I respect my
Yes or
country,
no?
and I
You're having the
respect
hardest time
my
today.
Senate.
Mayor Johnston?
I love my country.
Yes or no?
I love my country.
Mayor Johnson?
As the son of a pastor, I love everyone and this country.
Mayor Wu?
I love my country and my city.
Do you all, are you all willing to go to jail for violating federal law? Mayor Adams?
I'm not going to violate federal law, so I don't have to worry about that.
Mayor Johnston?
We don't violate federal law either.
You don't violate federal law.
We do not violate federal
Is it
law.
violating federal law if you don't honor detainer requests from ICE?
Absolutely not. In fact, the statute Congressman Biggs shared, we explicitly follow. The statute says you cannot prohibit city employees from sharing information about someone's status with the government. We do not prohibit that.
Do you love illegal aliens more than you love your fellow countrymen?
I love all the residents of the city and county.
Mayor Johnston, are you willing to go to jail for violating federal law?
The city of Chicago complies with all laws.
Oh, I highly doubt that. Mayor Wu?
We are not violating federal law.
Mayor Wu, I have a last couple questions for you. Do you believe that ICE arresting a child rapist, quote, threatens everyone's safety, end quote? Yes or no?
No.
Does ICE arresting a murderous MS-13 gang member threaten everyone's safety? Yes or no?
No.
I would like to hold up this quote of you where you say ICE's efforts actually threaten the safety of everyone, end quote. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. You're a hypocrite. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Oh my God. Does that not sound like an SNL skit or something?
Yes. Yes.
When he's like, as the son of a pastor, I could hear her go, ugh. Like, you're full of shit, you know?
Yeah, it's pure
I
comedy.
know. And I'm sorry, but Mayor Adams sounds really dumb. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but he was getting it from both sides because the Democrats want to take him down just as much as the Republicans do.
Exactly. That's the thing with Mayor Adams because of everything that happened with him, you know,
Yeah.
trying to call out Biden, like the Democrats are against him
Right.
too.
Well, okay, so Mayor Wu of Boston, to be honest, I haven't really paid much attention to her at all as much as the other mayors. But what came out from this hearing is that she used taxpayer dollars to pay a New York City law firm $650,000 to help her prep for this hearing. And that's how she answered the questions.
What are you hiding if you need to hire a lawyer like that to prep for a
Right.
hearing?
And then not only that, but then she spent an additional $8,500, and this is taxpayer money, to bring her staff to the hearing. Like, are they flying a private jet? I mean, what the hell? And clearly she didn't get good advice from the law firm because now she's facing prosecution. So one of my other favorite reps that's a little more toned down than Nancy Mace, but she uses the law to really go after people, is Representative Luna. And she's now asking the Department of Justice to prosecute these mayors for not following federal law. So I have a little clip of her just, you know, getting right to the point, and I think her point was made very clear.
That banning the transfer of individuals into ICE custody for the purpose of civil immigration enforcement encourages illegal immigration into Chicago. Or how about agencies, or agents not being able to stop, arrest, or detain individuals based solely on their immigration status or administrative warrant?
So we comply with all laws, local, state, and federal.
to me, after this line of questioning, it's very clear that these policies that you have all implicated are active and alive and well in your cities, are in direct violation with U.S. Title 8 Code subsection 1324, and it is a federal offense. But you all speak about a broken immigration system, and yet here you guys are aiding and abetting in that entire process. I want to be very clear about something. Open border policies, which is something that you guys are talking about, hurts people on both sides, meaning the people that are coming here illegally and then American citizens as well. I do not think you guys are bad people, but I think that you are ideologically misled, which is why, unfortunately, based on your responses, I'm all going to be criminally referring you to the Department of Justice for investigation. And as soon as I leave here, these will be going over to Pam Bondi. I'm not doing that in an effort to bully you guys, but I do believe that your policies are hurting the American people, and you can make that known with the evidence that you can present to the Department of Justice. But if you guys continue doing what you're doing, you're not going to help anyone. You're going to hurt more people, and that's exactly why I'm tired of it. The American people are tired of it. And Chairman, I yield my time. I believe that banning the transfer.
I love that.
I know. She was so much nicer. So much nicer.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's like she's like sounds super sweet and like, I don't think you're bad people, but I'm handing you over to the Department of Justice and you will be prosecuted. It's like, damn. I mean, I was jumping up and down because when you think about it, you know, there was no law under Biden that said any of this was okay. They were just choosing not to enforce the law. And so it's not that Trump's coming in and like changing all these laws. He's just getting us back to enforcing the laws we already had. And these mayors act like, you know, they had complete authority to do this. And it's so funny because it was just a couple days ago, I was talking with my husband and sanctuary cities came up. And he was like, I don't understand why these mayors aren't arrested because they're blatantly breaking federal law. And, you know, we were saying how up until the Biden administration, no one really openly and publicly were talking about how they're breaking federal law. Like everyone knew, but they weren't dumb enough to say it out loud. But these mayors not only said it out loud, but they admitted it under oath in a congressional hearing. You know, so for example, that case where they were asked about the illegal man who raped a 12-year-old girl and whether they would turn that man over to ICE, none of them said that they would. And so it's like every question was like that, where they're just blatantly admitting to aiding and abetting illegal migrants, including those that commit these violent and heinous acts. And so they may have gotten away with that shit under the Biden administration, but not anymore.
How are the families suing this? Like they should be suing the state.
I would have to think they are. I mean,
They've got to be.
they might be. I mean, I'm sure
haven't
there's all
seen
sorts
anything.
of lawsuits that we're not hearing about, you know, but I would think that they would clearly have a case. And maybe maybe they were waiting because under the Biden administration, it probably would have gotten thrown out. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, this is crazy. But I'm going to bring up something else that's happening in Congress because the House made a move on Thursday to censure Al Green for disrupting Trump's speech on Tuesday night. And we played a clip on Wednesday of Al Green's very bizarre rationale for why he had his outburst. But I guess on Wednesday, there were several representatives who introduced these measures for censure. And the one that they went with was from Rep. Dan Newhouse of Washington. And it required action within 2 days. So yesterday, the House voted on it. And the vote was actually 224 to 198, which meant that 10 Democrats voted with Republicans to censure him. And there were only 2 people who, like, it seems to me like they abstained from voting because they just say present and don't say yes or no. So this vote actually made Green the 28th member of Congress to receive a censure for breach of proper conduct. And the last rep to receive this censure was, remember Jamal Bowman from New York when he pulled the fire alarm? He was the last one to get this. And it was, Stephanie, the usual theatrical shit show in Congress. I don't know if you saw it, and I would play the clip, but there's just too much going on and you can't hear it. But so Mike Johnson calls Green to present him for censure. And I guess when that happens, they come and they stand in like the little well or whatever in the house. And so he calls him, and a group of Democrats go up there with Green and they start singing "We Shall Overcome." And the reason I'm not playing the clip is because they're singing and people are, clapping, and Mike Johnson's up there banging the gavel like over and over again, calling for the House to come to order. It was a fucking shit show.
I believe I did not see this on social media. You
I'll
send me the
send you.
video.
Yeah.
That's freaking
I'll send you the
hilarious.
video. And I was trying to look up and see who were the Democrats that were in there with him in the well, and I couldn't find an article on it. But it looked to me like 10 or 12 of them in there, all singing "We Shall Overcome." So completely asinine. And Rep. Andy Ogles, afterwards, he posted the clip on X, and he said he's going to be bringing action against each of those Democrats who broke decorum during the censure. And he said, quote, "I'm drafting privilege resolutions to remove each of them from their committees. If you want to act like a child in the halls of Congress, you'll be treated like a child." And that's exactly what this was like. It's like children being punished, and then they're told to go, face the wall, go stand in the corner for 10 minutes, because they literally stand in the well while the censure's read out loud. And that's it. Like, ooh, shame on you, like slap on the wrist and then, okay, go back to your chair. Everything that I read, like, I don't think a censure does much of anything. There's no real consequences for any of it. And it's like, okay, it was entertaining and like actually really pathetic, but I feel like it's just another theater performance in Congress.
No, it totally is. Like, imagine being in the real world, in a real job, and you act that way, you'd probably be taken out in handcuffs. Like, they'd get security to come and remove you, and you'd be fired. Clear out your desk, you're done. And
They were singing like they were a group of slaves up there.
it's so crazy. And you would think that once again, they would learn their lesson, because after the speech, I mean, I knew that the Democrats looked bad during the speech, but I didn't realize just how much of a backlash there would be from both sides. I mean, it wasn't just Republicans. There were a lot of Democrats saying, what the hell? I mean, you can't even stand up or clap for that little boy with brain cancer that Trump made a Secret Service agent, or for the mothers whose daughters were murdered by illegals. You can't clap for them. And it just made them look evil, like just horrible, childlike. So after the backlash, for them to go up and start singing, it's like clearly they didn't get the memo that this is just terrible. And there's, what I think about polls, but a YouGov poll showed that 76% of people approved of Trump's speech, while only 23% disapproved. 68% of people felt that the speech made them hopeful. Only 16% made them feel angry. So the Trump deranged numbers are dwindling. They are losing their party every single day. And every single act like this is making more and more people either go independent or go to the right or whatever. But they're not learning their lessons. And you even have one of your favorite people, Democrat Senator John Fetterman, and he says, quote, "A sad cavalcade of self-owns and unhinged petulance. It only makes Trump look more presidential and restrained. We're becoming the metaphorical car alarms that nobody pays attention to, and it may not be the winning message," end quote.
This coming from Fetterman.
So like even he sees it, but it's true. It's the car alarm that, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the boy that cries wolf. Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. Meanwhile, they are looking so hypocritical and just unprofessional. I mean, it's silly. It's like laughable at this point. And, let them keep pushing the same tired narrative, because there's no way it's a winning message. Like he said, they're not going to win future elections if they keep this up. But I got to ask you, did you see there's this viral video going around TikTok? And first it shows 4 Democrats. And then later there's 22 Democrats that went on all these different news programs after the speech. They are all reading the same exact script. And then it shows news articles that say the same exact phrases about, how Trump is bad. So I'm going to play it. I don't know if it'll come across because it's, multiple people talking at once, but just so you can get the gist of how ridiculous this is.
Donald Trump's presidency, prices are up, not down. Inflation is getting worse, not better. Cost of groceries, gas, housing, even eggs. He's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw, giving him access to Americans' most sensitive data. Your social security numbers, tax returns.
Okay, so I know that was annoying.
Yeah, the media propaganda
I mean,
speech.
it's so ridiculous. And then phrases like that, he's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw. Like, obviously, that's not something you would say every day. They're all reading a script. The news is reading the script. And people are wise to it at this point. It's just, they're going with the same narrative that lost them the election. And so I say, let him keep doing it. Let him keep acting like, children in Congress, and they won't ever win another election again, or at least not for many years.
Like when you brought up how so many people are like switching gears after this speech, after watching how the Democrats behaved, I want to read this post because Aaron actually sent this to me. And it was a letter that someone had sent to a podcaster, I guess, and Jim Walsh posted it on X. And the person's name was redacted. But they wrote, I watched the speech last night and 2-way this morning. I'm a Democrat. My immediate family and siblings are Democrats. We didn't vote for Trump. Last night for me, referring to the speech, was my breaking point. I watched with my husband as fellow Democrats, ironically wearing pink for women, sat there either stone-faced or seething with disgust while the family of Lake and Riley was honored and a young boy with cancer became an honorary Secret Service agent. I'm switching parties. It's been coming for a while, but that was the moment for me. I have a young family member that was the victim of assault. I have family in law enforcement. We've all been touched in some way by cancer, and I've not been able to come to terms with what I witnessed from Democrats last night. It was surreal. It was like an episode of Scooby-Doo where they pull off the masks and show you who the villains are. I literally couldn't sleep last night. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm done. As a woman, a mother, as a human, I'm just done. When I heard Nicole Wallace's heinous remark, I said to my husband, who are these people? They don't represent me anymore or who I am. I can finally admit to myself that despite my personal dislike of Trump, I begrudgingly admit I support some of what he's actually doing. I can't think of how much I support that the Democrats have been doing for a long time. And frankly, I don't even know what they stand for now, except the right to choose, which is no longer enough, and men having the right to invade what were once my personal spaces. I admit I actually smiled when I saw the First Lady. I cried when the boy hugged the Secret Service agent. I realized I have so missed this quintessentially American feeling of pride. Pride for my fellow citizens, pride for my country. I'm flabbergasted at myself, but it feels like a relief to admit all of this. I can't say I'm MAGA, but I know now after last night I'm no longer a Democrat.
Wow. See, and I mean,
Yeah.
she said that so perfectly. I think that's what a lot of people are feeling, whether they're saying it out loud or posting it or not. Right from wrong. And I think everyone watching that knew who was on the right side and who was on the wrong side.
Yeah, exactly. So pretty powerful shit. I want to give an update on the whole Ukraine-Europe situation because, okay, remember we just had this emergency summit meeting this week, right? And apparently it was not with unilateral agreement about everyone wanting to, do whatever it takes to uphold Ukraine and pledge their upgrading defense spending. And one of the options on the table was actually the seizure of $227 billion in frozen Russian central bank reserves to pay for, I guess it's there to pay for reconstructing Ukraine, and they wanted to start using the money. But Belgium, France, and Germany Like two big countries with France and Germany are speaking out, and they're saying this will undermine confidence in the euro, which is the EU central currency. And it's already, the economies here are already shit anyway. The UK is considering sending military troops to Ukraine. And then Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, has suggested a new plan. And this is what I want your opinion on. She said it would be a plan where Ukraine would get the same security guarantees as other NATO countries, but just without officially being in NATO. So an attack on Ukraine would be seen as an attack on the entire West. Is that not basically being in NATO? Because she says it's different. But what's different aside from officially being a NATO country if you're going to react to it like it's a NATO country?
Right. That sounds like the exact same thing to me. And this is where I'm confused with her because, and again, like I don't know if this is true or not, but just from like videos I was seeing on social media where they were making it sound like she was almost saying instead of, having NATO, which is like against Russia, why not create some sort of an agreement, an alliance with Russia? Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but either way, I don't like NATO. Maybe what she's saying is NATO is corrupt as fuck and can't be trusted and it needs to go away. I don't know, but that doesn't sound very clear to me.
Yeah, I don't know. And we haven't heard anything more, at least not that I've seen, about when peace talks will re-engage. So we'll keep you guys posted, but who knows? I got to totally switch gears here, and I am almost ashamed, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I just might become a listener of Gavin Newsom's podcast because his first guest this week was Charlie Kirk. So I had to tune in because I'm like, oh, Charlie Kirk and Newsom, opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And it was very interesting because Newsom was trying very hard to come off sounding unbiased. And because we know he's not unbiased, like, I actually think that's too nice of a word. He was totally ass kissing and sucking up to Charlie Kirk. And he was constantly agreeing with him and just repeated probably 30 times. I appreciate that. I appreciate your perspective. I agree with you. No, I appreciate where you're coming from. And, he used all the politically correct phrases. And it's very clear he's a politician. But Stephanie, if I didn't know who Newsom was and I didn't know what he was about, and I just randomly discovered this podcast, I would never think that he is the governor of communist California. Like, he's trying to present himself as neutral, and it's a fucking lie, but he's good at it. And this is why I have said for years that he's the Antichrist.
It's just like the typical narcissist, sociopath. You think of like all these serial killers and how they were incredibly charming and manipulative. Mm-hmm. That's what I think of when I think of Newsom, because he's like charming. He like swindles you, but we know better than to fall for it. But yeah, someone who maybe has never paid attention to politics, I could see them totally being charmed by this guy.
Oh, yeah. And they had a very interesting conversation. They talked about, why higher educated people tend to be Democrats. And they got on the whole narrative of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter. And Newsom was like, was that wrong to address the issue of racial inequality? Like, there's legitimately issues as it relates to past practices. And, Charlie's like giving him all the evidence of what happened with it basically being like a total racket where they spent hundreds of millions of dollars so that woman Patrice Cullors could buy homes for her family. But the conversation started out very chill, and then it got heated. Like many times towards the end, it was totally heated. And Charlie Kirk was pretty much holding Newsom's feet to the fire. But again, he's such a good politician that he was able to weasel his way out of any kind of conflict in these conversations. And he would always bring it back to this very politically correct response. And I felt like Charlie Kirk gave him a game plan for how to run for office and get the youth vote. And I'm like, part of me is like, shut up, stop telling him how to do things the right way, you know? And he insisted, like, I don't know why everyone thinks I want to run for office. It's like, instead of Trump derangement syndrome, you all have California derangement syndrome. But we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see if he runs. But I want to play this clip because they got on the topic of transgenders in sports. And Newsom was agreeing that it wasn't fair for male athletes to play in women's sports. But I felt like he was just trying to be placating most of the time. So I want to get your take on this part of the conversation.
Activist spark. You guys are posting these cringe videos on social media.
What are the videos? What are the ones that
I don't know, this
cringy?
like harmonious thing of like 22 senators all saying the same
You
thing.
didn't like that, yeah.
I didn't like it. Go ahead, go do more of that.
What do you do?
Please.
What do you do? Seriously, Charlie Kirk, give us some
Get
advice.
better ideas, Governor.
Is
Like,
it
for example,
ideas?
I mean, like, if you want to, you have an opportunity to, run to the middle and seize this mantle. Obviously,
Right.
you're talking to me of all people.
Yeah.
So, you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
Right.
that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate.
But would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness.
So
it's deeply unfair.
Would you speak out against this young man, A.B. Hernandez, who right now is going to win the state championship in the long jump? I can see you wrestling with it.
No, I'm not wrestling. I'm not wrestling with the fairness issue. I totally agree with you. By the way, as someone with 4 kids, I think
and
got
2 daughters, right?
2 daughters.
And I have a daughter too.
And a wife that went, God forbid, to Stanford and played on the junior national soccer team, and a guy who got into college only because I was left-handed and could throw a baseball a little bit or hit the ball for a little bit. So I revere sports, and so the issue of fairness is completely legit. And I saw that the last couple of years. Boy, did I saw how you guys were able to weaponize that issue at another level.
Not weaponize. That's
well, weaponize may be pejorative. You're right, but you were able to
shine a light on,
highlight it in a way that, frankly, there are not that many. We're talking about, I think, the NC2A, 510,000? No, but I just didn't realize.
It's 890 medals and trophies that we know of in the last 5 years. That's a lot.
No, so let me step back, say completely fair on the issue of fairness. I completely agree. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue with the kind of decency that I think, is inherent in you, but not always expressed on the issue?
No, I get it.
At the same time, deal with the unfairness.
So you asked a good faith question. How do we Democrats get out of the wilderness?
Yeah.
This one is an 80-20 issue. New York Times poll, right? That's
I agree with you. We're getting crushed on.
Crushed. And you have an opportunity in the state to be like, look, I have a heart for A.B. Hernandez. I have a heart for the San Jose volleyball player.
Yeah.
Let's give them compassion. But what's not fair is just for entire woman's sports.
I agree. By the way, I agree with you. And it's interesting. I stress tested this, Charlie. I was wondering, I said, in California, and I've been a leader in the LGBTQ space, as you know, back in 2004, was marrying same-sex couples. And I know we have different opinion on marriage equality. And so I've been at this for years and years. I take a backseat to no one. But I was actually on the issue of sports, which in the last few years has just exploded. Trying to understand the 10 athletes in the NC2A, 510,000 athletes, but 10 athletes, but how profound. And even my own friend cohort, people saying, the hell is going on? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you calling this out? When did this happen? So in 2014, years before I was governor, there was a law established the legal principles that allow trans athletes in women's sports. But the issue of fairness is completely legit. So I completely align with you. And we've got to own that. We've got to acknowledge it. I don't say that through the prism of politics because
Do you see the way he basically shirked away from any kind of responsibility and must have said, I agree with you 20 times in that one clip?
Yeah. I saw a whole bunch of clips like this on TikTok and, I go right to the comments to see, is anyone buying this shit? And they're not. Everyone, literally, I scrolled and scrolled. Most of the comments were saying, yep, he's gearing up to run for president in 2028. He sees the writing on the wall. He knows the Democrats are done. So now all of a sudden he's going to try to appear more moderate and win over men. And it makes me think of Tucker Carlson because a while back, he was saying how he knows Newsom and how Newsom is just pure evil because he's the type of person that will lie to your face and turn around and immediately do the opposite. And like basically how he'll say anything to benefit himself, but at the end of the day has no true morals and values. So, like a sociopath. And he did the same thing back when we thought that they were going to replace Biden with Newsom, like before Kamala had the switcheroo. He went on Sean Hannity and he was trying to act like he had all these Republican values and same thing, like just kept agreeing with Hannity. And it was just so inauthentic. But he was like trying to charm his way into the hearts of people on the right. And, I think most people can see through it. But like you said, if there's someone that's brand new to this and knows nothing about his background, I could see how they would fall right into that trap. And then also on this podcast with Charlie Kirk, he was saying how his son is like a big fan of Turning Point USA. And I'm sure that he's seeing, the youth shifting way right, especially with young men, and knows if he wants a political future, he needs to make some big changes. So it's like, on the one hand, at least you have one Democrat that's learning from this past election. But on the other hand, it's like this guy is not, he's done the worst of all of them. Just look at the state of California. He can't be trusted. And I hope people don't fall for it.
I hope not too. And that's why I'm listening to his podcast because I'm just going to call it out every time he's full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the only reason he's starting that podcast is because he's like campaigning already for 2028 for his big debut as future president.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine
Exactly.
having someone like him? Jeez. Well, that's a lot that's happened the last couple of days. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We have some fun episodes coming next week because Tara's going to be out. We pre-recorded some things and I cannot wait to share it with everyone. So we'll see you back here on Monday.